Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It's the weekend. The tea is made. And I am ready to get into the Corner Box Classics that I would have pedaled up to my shop on the week of June 29th, 1982, while listening to REO Speedwagon's 10th album, Good Trouble. These are the books that I would have picked up. But before we get into that, I recently... I have a spinner rack over here, spinner rack over there. The spinner rack over here, I had all of my 60s X-Men titles in, and I recently did some rearranging, moved those to this whole wall is X books, and I put, I wanted to kind of get ahead and sort of organize the 1983 books, kind of map that whole thing out. And as I was doing that, I could not find X-Men and the Micronauts. And I was like, I know for a fact that I own this series, but I could not find it. And part of the reason why is I have an absolutely insane way of organizing my X books. And so I gotta move some stuff here so I can sort of show you the insanity to see if perhaps I need to figure out a new way. So it's like X-Men 189, 190, 191, 192. Then you need to know that the X-Men Alpha Flight series that took place between issues number 192 and then X-Men Annual 8 comes after that story-wise, and then the miniseries Firestar fits in there. So you have Firestar issue number 1, Firestar issue number 2, but number 2 sort of leads into Uncanny X-Men 193, so that goes between Firestar 2 and Firestar 3, 4. Then you have Uncanny X-Men number 194. Then you got to have Power Pack issue number 12 in there because that leads into Uncanny X-Men 195. So I guess my question is, like, at what point do I realize that, because I mean, this is insane. There's like X-Men versus Fantastic Four in there. The Havoc Wolverine Meltdown series fits in these issues. Like, at what point do I realize that this is an absolutely insane way to organize my comics, and sometimes occasionally causes me to be like, where the hell is this one issue? And then I have to like think. It's very, if you've ever seen or read the book High Fidelity, it's a little bit like the chronological order of his albums that he would need to know, what happened in that particular summer to get there. So does anyone else, I guess, have like ridiculously crazy ways of organizing their comics that only they would understand? Or am I just bonkers, and do I need to just alphabetize everything? Anyways, that's my question. All right, Corner Box Classics. Jamming REO Speedwagon, pedaling up to my shop. It's a beautiful June day. It's great. It's going to be in the 70s here, so I'm jazzed about that. We've kind of finally coming out of that. Like, one day it's 30, one day it's 70, hopefully, fingers crossed. So first up, book that I would have picked up, Amazing Spider-Man number 253. Where the fuck is Nose Norton? June 29th, 1982. Written by Roger Stern, pencils by John Romita Jr., inks by Jim Mooney, letters by Diana Albers, colors by Glennis Ween, and a cover which makes, I looked at this cover for like 20 minutes. I was like, I don't understand this cover. But it's by John Romita Jr. and Al Milgrom. Like, it's a fine cover, but what, like, I don't know. Anyways, opens up with a great splash page of J. Jonah Jameson trying to figure out where Nose Norton is. And so we got the Crack News team in there, and Ned Leeds is trying to explain that, like, obviously Nose is in the wind, and they need him because he has information on the Brand Corporation for this big story that the Daily Bugle is going to bust. And J. Jonah Jameson wants to drag Spider-Man into this somehow because of the fight between Cobra and Hyde in the last 2 issues. And I really like Ned here because Ned's basically like, you do that, and I'm like off this story because like, don't drag one of your Spider-Man editorials into this story that could do some actual good. And Jonah kind of acquiesces there, where he's like, all right, like, ugh. But if he does, and Ned's like, if he does, then we will nail him. But like, we cannot compromise the integrity of this story just so you can like scream about Spider-Man. And I really appreciated that. And Robbie agrees, Marla agrees, so JJ finally begrudgingly agrees. Pete is he gets on top of he swings onto the Daily Bugle, and he's kind of talking about the fact that he's lost his teaching aide position, but how it's kind of a good thing because he can focus on photography, which pays more, frees him up time to study. But then as he's doing the quick change, he gets to the door, and they have added those, the things that you push that alerts the fire department. I did that once when I was a kid. I was running to a restaurant bathroom and just ran right, like I thought that was the, and so the fire department came as a whole thing. So he eventually pulls a John McClane because he can't get down the window and goes down the elevator shaft. And, that's when, right as he walks in, basically JJ and the team comes out and announce like, hey, we have this story going on and we're pulling everybody in because we need to find Nose Norton. And JJ finally opens up the purse strings and is like $1,500 to anybody who finds him. And so Ben Urich is there and he's like, I think I could find him. And Pete's like, I gotta get back up to the roof, change into the duds, and swing out of here because, I could use the $1,500 to help out Aunt May open her retirement home in the old Queen's pad. And so as that's happening, Pete bumps into this gal who turns out to be Lance Bannon's girl, but she seems pretty interested in Pete at this time. So then Pete, he winds up going to a pool hall, and there's some people there talking about Nose Norton, so he busts this up, but it turns that was actually a undercover sting by the NYPD that Pete has now messed up. So that guy's pretty bummed about that. And then we cut to the Miami Beach, where some people find the people who are trying to get rid of Nose Norton wind up contacting the tarantula, hence why he's on the cover. And they basically hire him to take care of Nose. And so then Pete's tailing Ben smartly, and he's like, he kind of sees Ben Urich take off, and he's like, okay, Ben just got a tip, so he winds up hooking up with Ben Urich. And they both eventually find Nose Norton, who has wound up at a bar. And this is where the tarantula winds up attacking all of them. Pete does his usual thing where thankfully he's able to find some time to get away without Ben noticing. Ben's a pretty smart guy, so I imagine that he is going to figure this out since he figured out Daredevil over in Miller's Daredevil. But there you have it. So, a big dust up between Spider-Man and Tarantula. A whole thing about how Ben Urich needs to quit smoking, which he does, because him coughing kind of once again gives away his position to the bad guy. And then Nose is obviously like he's been hurt in this battle, so they need to rush him away. Tarantula has gotten away, and Pete winds up, he shows back up, and Ben's like, where the hell have you been? And he's like, I've been up there taking pictures. And so that is where this issue ends. So this is my first go around with most of this Spider-Man stuff, and it is as a surprise to no one, I'm sure, that grew up and was actually picking these up off the rack while this was going on, as just an absolutely great era. And, you know, I think I say this a lot about this and kind of Captain America, that at this time period, one of the things that I love the most about these books is the supporting, like, non-superhero cast and how much that brings to the book. And I really, like, that's one of the things that I sort of miss in modern day Spider-Man stories, is we need a stronger supporting cast and a bigger light to shine on that cast, as opposed to just constant, like, you know, symbiotes. All right, next up, Captain America number 274, Death of a Hero, released June 29th, 1982, written by David Anthony Kraft, pencils by Mike Zeck, inks by John Beatty, letters by Janice Chang, colors by Bob Sharon, and a cover by Mike Zeck and John Beatty. There was a Howling Commandos reunion in the last issue that was broken up by the return of Baron Strucker. And I am drawing a blank on the sergeant or whatever that Baron kidnapped, but that was sort of the whole thing of it, that Commandos have now converged, and they are, there's a nice recap here on the second page of basically everything that's going on, which I do appreciate. And so the Howling Commandos are kind of putting together a plan because they have taken off in a nuclear capable plane, and they obviously, like, Baron Strucker having nuclear capabilities is not great. So they wind up tracking this plane down because the sergeant that they're going after is able to kind of signal them from the plane. And so Dum Dum, Cap, and Nick are like the main group that's going after them. Rest of the Howling Commandos basically weren't supposed to be there. Nick initially was like, you guys shouldn't be doing this. And they were like, listen, man, we know we disobeyed the orders to show up this round, but, like, we get that you're the boss. Like, you take charge. Yeah, absolutely. We'll follow your orders. So Cap, they wind up getting onto the plane. Cap is able to find the general, and kind of tuck him away, because he's wounded, and kind of stores him somewhere, and then goes after the rest of the Hydra agents. And I mean, they are in a terrible spot. They are getting attacked on all ends by the Hydra goons, because they basically, like, entered in their quarters. Like, that's where they busted into, in the Hydra base or whatever that they flew to. And then eventually Cap shows up, and you get him rescuing the Howling Commandos. And then the general is like, I'm not doing anything here, and I need to be able to help out. So he winds up taking over a Hydra guy's outfit, you know, doing the old switcheroo, and then goes to stop this. They realize that this Baron, again, just like another one, the first one that they're fighting is another LMD. There's lots of LMDs. This is like, it's too many LMDs. Like, one or two too many LMDs. So, the last Baron is another LMD that they stop. But he's got his finger on a trigger where it's going to blow the whole thing and kill everybody. And so this dude is able to kind of jump on top of it and stop that from happening. Like, it mortally wounds him, and he goes out like a, you know, like a Howling Commando would want to. But he saves the day. And so it ends with his funeral and the Commandos saluting him. So, solid 2-issue, fun, like, Shield Howling Commando story. That's a blast. I prefer a little bit more of, I refer to this whole era as the Brownstone era, because of Steve living not at Avengers Mansion, but in his own apartment in a brownstone. And I dig the cast of characters in there, like I was saying. But I mean, I'm not gonna say no to a 2-issue fun Howling Commandos versus Hydra and Baron Strucker story. That would be silly. All right, next up. Not rocking the sales charts, obviously, because it is a bi-monthly book, but it is fantastic. Doctor Strange number 55, To Have Loved and Lost, released June 29th, 1982. Written by Roger Stern, penciled by the great Michael Golden, inks by the fantastic Terry Austin, letters by James Novak, colors by Glennis Wine, and a fantastic cover by Michael Golden. Initially, I had bought into Doctor Strange because I wanted to get the Roger Stern Paul Smith era, and the lot that I purchased that particular run in had quite a few. In the front end of it was Chris Claremont issues, which I loved. Roger Stern's art or writing is obviously fantastic, and these one-off issues that have been Michael Golden's one of my favorite pencilers. And these one-off issues of Doctor Strange drawn by Michael Golden have been fantastic. I mean, look at this, like, the opening page. It's just so good. And so, Strange is really messed up over Clea. Clea had, like, a vision that there's another sorceress who, like, loves Strange so much that she's like, oh, I need to leave because she really loves him. But, like, Strange doesn't love her, so he's just sort of like, he's just heartbroken, and he's kind of just in the Sanctum Sanctorum. He's not eating. Wong comes up, and he's like, you gotta eat. Can I make you a sandwich? Can I do something? And he's like, absolutely not. And then he sees a vision of Clea basically explaining the whole, like, I saw this vision of this woman that loved you, and he's like, I don't care about this. And then realizes that, like, this is a vision that he's seen because he's so depressed. And then up pops this, like, other sorcerer guy and a dead sorcerer. And he's basically like, Strange wished that he was dead. And so we're about to get, like, I believe one of those, he's acting as a spirit guide, and we're going to get one of the, this is like Doctor Strange Dickens, So he pulls him out and takes him to see the Ancient One. And again, all of this is, like, beautifully rendered by Terry Austin and Michael Golden. It's beautiful. And he's like, yeah, I know who Stephen Strange is, but you didn't come here to be a sorcerer back then. You're a physician, and you died in an automobile crash. So, like, that's where he died. And so Baron Mordo is revealed to be his, like, apprentice. And so it sort of goes through all of this. And I love this bit where, like, as they're going through this, he goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and it is revealed there to be like the sorcerer guide is like, Stephen, I'd like you to meet Ted Tavosky and Les Tane. Les, of course, writes the Doctor Strange books and illustrates them, because Doctor Strange is just like a story in this world. But I loved the Ted Tavosky and Les Tane because it is obviously Steve Ditko and Stan Lee in the Sanctum Sanctorum writing these stories. And so that's, I always get a kick out of that type of stuff. And so then he then sees the Defenders, and they're very different similar but different without him. And but then, like, his mind is just being messed with because it's a set that he's seen. And he eventually realizes that this sorcerer in this kick-ass splash page is actually Despair, and he's feeding off of Strange's depression. So then it becomes this Doctor Strange versus Despair fight. And Despair is a character that, like, very little history, but the history that I do have with the character is there's an issue where Cyclops is, like, post Jean's death, visiting. He decides to go, like, on a fishing boat and meets Lee Forrester, and, like, that's kind of what Cyclops is doing during that time when Storm takes over the X-Men. And it's revealed that it's Despair in this one particular issue messing with Lee and Cyclops, and it's just a really great. It's a character that I really, really like, and I dig the mental struggle here that Steven is going through. You know, and then you get this great, like, sorcerer battle drawn by Michael Golden and Terry Austin for a couple pages of Steven fighting Despair. And it's great. I mean, look at that. It's so good. So obviously Steven defeats him and realizes, like, he had allowed grief to overwhelm him and face despair, and so he was kind of coming out of it. And then Wong shows back up after they hear all this commotion, and he once again offers to get him something to eat, and Steven agrees that he would like something to eat, which was a very it was a nice little, like, this is a nice, like, fun one and done, great writing, great art, just a fun one and done Doctor Strange issue. And this series has been a blast. Like, I don't have the first 37 issues. I would like to track them down. My run started with the Claremont stuff. But reading this has definitely made me want to get the rest of that volume. That's where we're at. Holy smokes. Hercules #2. For the Love of Gods, released June 29th, 1982, written and drawn and inked by Bob Layton, letters by the great Rick Parker, colors by Christy Scheel, and a cover by Bob Layton. If you watched the Corner Box Classics where I discussed the first issue, it was the hit of that week. And man, it was again. I crack up because I was sure, like, I looked at the books this week, and it's like Claremont and Miller's Wolverine #2 comes out this week. And if I had, like, not read any of the issues and just pointed to the one that I thought I would like the most, I would have thought it was going to be Wolverine #2, but Hercules is so much fun. Like, I cannot, if you have never read, I've only read 2 issues. I have not read all 4. But 2 issues in, man, it's an absolute blast. So you get this great splash page, which recaps kind of why Hercules is in the position he is in. But it's done in a rhyme, and I just loved that. I don't know. It's just, it's so good. So it kicks off, like, basically, like, Hercules is racing this other spaceship. He's on his chariot with these 2 horses, like space chariot, which, I mean, come on. That's like, if you were like, why should I read this comic book? And I was like, 2 words, space chariot. That should be enough. If you're a fan of comic books, maybe in like Hercules rides around on a space chariot, that should be enough. I shouldn't even have to tell you anything else about this issue for you to be like, I should try to find this at my local comic shop or online or wherever you choose to buy your comics from. So he decides that he's going to race these guys, and it's like 10,000 credits. And Hercules is like, nobody's going to beat me. I'm Hercules. And these dudes immediately take off, and they're gone. And Hercules is stunned that this has happened because he's Hercules. He's not used to losing. And so they get to the little spaceport. They Port Antares, the majestic capital of the planet Wilhelmian. And so he lands there, and then the guys get out of the ship, and they're like, you owe us 10,000 credits. And he's like, well, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not have 10,000 credits because it did not even enter Hercules' mind that he might lose, because Hercules doesn't lose. So he's like, but don't worry about it. He's like, you can hold on to the space chariot, hold on to the steeds, keep them as a sign of good faith while I go and get the 10,000 credits. And so the recorder is like, how are we going to get 10,000 credits? And Hercules kind of moves, and there's this reward poster for this woman who's been kidnapped for 10,000 credits. And the reward poster even says, a couple people have already tried and died. And Hercules is like, I'm Hercules. This is fine. So he busts in to this thing, starts taking on the goons, sends the recorder. He's like, I'm going to create the diversion. I'm going to bust through these guys. I'm just going to start wailing on him. And you need to sneak in to where this gal is. Lyanna Sweetwater. Awesome name. And you need to get her. So he gets her. And Hercules is taking on the soldiers and a little robot. I mean, this is just like, it's just pure fun comics. It's like right up my alley. I love it. It's like, you might be like, this is stupid. It's not stupid. It's delightful. It's like hilarious. So they escape. As the recorder's trying to explain that they need to move faster, he's like, we're almost out of range of their blasters. And then immediately as he's pointing, his hands get blasted off. And he's just super bummed out about it. And the Lyanna lady is like super jazzed that Hercules was the one who rescued her. And so then it cuts back to the fellas that Hercules had lost the race to in the beginning. And they're trying to dismantle the chariot. And the steeds turn out to be fire breathing and are having none of it as these guys are trying to strip the chariot. So then it cuts to Lyanna has been delivered to the spaceport police department or whatever. The guys have put out the 10,000 credit reward. And so Hercules is like, it's time to pay up. I got her. And they're like, well, we don't actually have the 10,000 credits either, because we didn't expect anyone to actually be able to do this. And so he's like, well, then she's staying with me. Then she's staying with me till somebody pays me my money. So they go, she helps, as there's this hilarious bit where the recorder is getting a new hand, but there's not one that matches. So they're trying a bunch of different hands. It's funny. Hercules gets a new outfit, and then he basically like heads back to his spaceport hotel room, and the recorder's like, well, I got to document everything you're doing, so I'm gonna go in there. And he's like, I don't want you to document what I'm about to do, so you need to stay back. So the recorder is like, no, it's like they shut the door, and he finds a box, moves it, and then is peeking through the window to what they're doing. And he specifically their interaction is quite similar to the antler dance ritual on Sirius 4, and then he gets pulled down, and there's a couple of the guards who are like, we found another one of those peeping Tom androids. And so they take him off, and Hercules is like post hanging out with this gal, and she's like, I want to stay with you forever. And Hercules is kind of, he then explains I read this more as Hercules basically kind of explains like, oh, I loved this mortal woman and I left for like a day, but it turned out being 90 years. So I came back and she was an old maid and it broke my heart, blah, blah, blah. And so this is his explanation for why she can't stick around. And then he's like, oh, she bought it. And because she's like, oh, what a sad story. And he's like, in his head, he's like, oh, she bought it. It didn't even happen. Which I love, because as I was reading it, I was like, he's lying. He's 100% lying. So then she tells him the story about how her father sold him to Count Iguanus. He is one of the Gekku, which is so good. Just Count Iguanus, Gekku. I love it. Hats off, Bob Layton. A race of lizard men. So he has been betrothed to Count Iguanus. And so, then Hercules is like, well, I don't want you being sold to this dude. So yeah. So then Count Iguanus shows up. Hercules starts fighting him. She's getting away. And then he's fighting Count Iguanus, and Iguanus is like, why are you fighting me? Like, she agreed to marry me. She wanted to marry me. And Hercules is like, what? And so then it's revealed that she was like, oh yeah, I did. But she's like, but then I met you. And so Hercules is like, I want nothing to do with you, chick. You go off with Count Iguanus. And Iguanus, like, knowing, I'm pretty sure that he knows what just happened between the two of them, is still like, well, I still want to marry her. Poor Iguanus. And Iguanus gives him the 10,000 credits. So then Hercules shows back up, and those two dudes that he owes the 10,000 credits to have been all banged up by the space chariot steeds. And Hercules is like, well, hey, I'll give you the 10,000 credits so you can pay your medical bill. And that's best issue of the week. So good. 2 issues in. Listen, I don't think this thing goes for much. Okay, so issues 3 and 4 could be crap, but find it, buy it, because I doubt they will be, because the first 2 issues have been absurdly fantastic, and whatever you pay for it, it'll be worth the first 2. Micronauts number 46, Adrift, released June 29th, 1982, written by Bill Bantlow, pencils by Luke McDonnell, inks by Daniel Bolinati, letters by Janice Chang, colors by Bob Sharon, with a cover by Ed Hannigan and Al Milgrom. I'm sleepwalking through this title. I bought the whole thing based on a friend of mine being like, I love Micronauts. It was great. You should check it out. And Michael Golden drew the first 12 issues. So I was like, hell yeah. And I found it at a comic book shop that I liked that was going out of business. And I was able to find all of the issues for like pennies when it was all said and done. And so I was like, hell yeah. And this is my testament to say that not everything from the 80s was fantastic. Micronauts things happen. And thankfully, it was getting late, and I was like, do I read Micronauts or do I read Hercules? And I read Micronauts first before I read Hercules, and I was happy that I did, because I was like, I would not have wanted to follow up Hercules after this. So I'm not even going to get into it. Micronauts, I think if that's issue 46, I think there's 12 or 13 issues left in the series. I'm reading them because I own them and I want to read all of my comics. But Micronauts is probably something that I'm going to pull a few issues out of that I did enjoy in case I ever get the hankering to read Micronauts again. But the rest of it is getting tossed into the give to some poor kid on Halloween pile. But keep that good Hercules energy riding high. We're going to go into an absolutely absurd Mighty Thor number 324, Graviton. June 29th, 1982, written by Doug Mensch, pencils by Alan Kupperberg, inks by Jim Mooney, letters by Janice Chang, and colors by George Roussos. Okay, this is another wonky one. So, splash page of Thor doing some heavy lifting. His belt is clearly worthy because it's holding up Mjolnir. Him and Wasp are working out, and Wasp has recently discovered that Thor is Donald Blake. So they've got this budding friendship brewing here between the two of them. And so they're done working out, and Jan's basically like, oh, well, later on I'm going to go shopping at Bloomingdale's, and mentions this because, that's what it is. Then we cut to Graviton escaping from where he has been, and he quickly goes to an old lab partner's house, busts through her wall, and starts explaining that he's basically like in love with her. And she is with her. It gives a brief recap of what's happened to Graviton in Avengers number 158 and Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 4. And then she's basically like, which I thought this was, so she's like, why are you coming after me? I'm not especially pretty, and I just don't love you. I'm just like, why did she have to say that she wasn't especially pretty? And I was like, I don't know, Kupperberg, you did all right. And then her fiance is like standing next to her, like in his underwear, because they were in bed. And I've just got to be like, I'd be a little bit bummed if my gal was like slagging herself off like that. And so Graviton's like, all right, well, I guess I'll go. And he decides, he goes to a bar to lament the fact that this woman doesn't love him. This lab assistant doesn't love him. And so he's talking to the barkeep, which I'm just like, this has already got Hercules energy all over it, and I'm kind of like, I'm loving reading these two back and forth. So Graviton is getting sloshed, talking to the barkeep, and the barkeep, he's like, Graviton's like, where should I find a woman that's suitable for me? And he's like, that's easy, pal. You just gotta hang out where they buy all them fancy clothes. Bloomingdale's, Saks Fifth Avenue, Bergdorf's, like that. And so, he decides to go, Graviton decides to go attack Bloomingdale's. So we cut to Bloomingdale's, which just happens to be where Janet Van Dyne was going shopping. This works out great. And Graviton legit rips it out of the New York skyline and pulls it into the air and threatens everyone in there. And he announces over the PA system that he is looking for a mate and is basically like, hear me, shoppers. I am Graviton, and I have just skyjacked this store for the purpose of finding a suitable consort. Besides being wedded to a man of awesome power, the woman I choose will receive as dowry this very store. Which I was just like, this is so stupid. I love it. So one of these women is like floating through the air and through this door, and she's like, whoever he is, he must be insane. And so this other woman who is legit upside down floating through the air is like, before drawing any conclusions, maybe we should see what he looks like first. Brilliant. So then Thor shows up. The battle in this department store ensues between Thor and Graviton, and he gets separated from Mjolnir, and this is like, he gets like launched out of the building, and this is a great scene because Thor, if he's separated from the hammer for 60 seconds, turns back into Blake. So as he's falling from the sky, the hammer follows, but it turns into the staff because he's been away from it for 60 seconds. So they're both falling, and then thankfully, in what would have been a very cool scene if they had ever gone down his alter ego is Don Blake thing in the MCU, thankfully he lands basically on the staff, which turns into the hammer, and so then he's there. So this was a nice little thing that they did where like he switched back over to Don Blake because Don Blake was like, oh, we could get some drugs and we could drug Graviton and it could end all this. And so that is what happens. He swoops back up there in the Thor guys, drugs Graviton to knock him out, and then shunts him off to outer space. And that's the end of that. And there's a little backup story that's been going on there that was good. Always a good time to have a fun Asgard backup story, but it was nowhere near as good as the Graviton decides to skyjack a Bloomingdale's to get a gal pal. I love it. Listen, Hercules and Thor right now are probably my two favorites of the week. But last book that I would have picked up, Wolverine #2, Debts and Obligations, June 29th, 1982, written by Chris Claremont, pencils by Frank Miller, inks by Joe Rubinstein, letters by Tom Orzechowski, and colors by Glennis Wein, and a cover by Miller and Rubinstein. It's funny because the last issue of Daredevil that I read, when it was penciled by Klaus Jensen, which I like a lot, I was like, why isn't Miller? And then I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, he's penciling the Wolverines. Because I was like, man, if Miller's penciling this and he's penciling Daredevil, talk about just two fantastic stories that, and I mean, no discredit for the fact that Jansen's filling in on pencils while he's doing this. I mean, the guy's knocking it out of the park. At the end of the first issue, Wolverine met Yukio, and they get into this. I mean, I'll take Jansen filling in on Daredevil, who is awesome, so that I can get a splash page of Wolverine busting through a window, fighting hand ninjas any day of the week, drawn by Frank Miller back then. And so then Yukio is explaining to Logan who the Hand are. And it is just good stuff, as it's pages upon pages of Claremont noir writing, Frank Miller pencils of Wolverine and Yukio absolutely going to town on ninjas. Look at that. Look at that. It's fantastic. Again, this probably falls into the same category as Frank Miller's Daredevil, where it's like there ain't much that I'm going to be saying about this that has not been said before by people who are... I am just a dude that like loves my comic books, and I like the stories, and I, just want to talk about stuff that I really enjoy and love. And I don't think that I'm breaking any new ground, or I can go over here and discuss exactly what art thing is being done here, other than the fact that I love it and it's fun. And I'm not going to get anybody to buy Wolverine or Daredevil, but I might get somebody to check out Dazzler or Hercules, and that would bring me nothing but joy. Anyways, Yukio tries to put the moves on Logan. She's like, dude, we're one and the same. Let's just do this thing. And Wolverine all of a sudden pictures Mariko, and he's like, get off me. And she's pissed off about that. And she basically like begs him, which he in his head is like, this isn't like her, and that's that. So then it cuts to her basically in a disguise, going to meet up with Lord Shingen, and she winds up kind of fighting him. And later on, Wolverine and her wind up going after Mariko. She's at a play, and it is there. There was, yeah, I'm going to butcher this. Kushinugura, the 47 Ronin. So she's at this play, and that's where we're at. And the main actor jumps into the crowd, and Wolverine reads it that he's going to go and try to kill Mariko. So Wolverine fights him, and then kind of gets drawn into a berserker rage at this point. And Mariko sees this, and like that is the moment that he knows, like, oh, she's gone. She's not interested. There's no love left for me anymore in this, because she saw me in a berserker rage. And Yukio winds up like, or Yuriko? It might not be Yuriko. I might be mixing up my, yeah, if anybody's like, you're getting the name wrong, it's possible. Yeah, she's all for the fact that this is gone the way that it went. So again, the Wolverine miniseries is fantastic. It's written by Claremont. Doesn't get better than that. Great pencils by Frank Miller. Ninjas. I mean, ninjas were where it was at in the 80s. So yeah, so that is what I would have picked up had I pedaled up to my local comic book shop on June 29th, 1982. Let me know if my organization is absolutely batshit crazy and I need to figure out a new plan as I get older, because I'm like, I literally spent an hour trying to find that Micronauts mini. Found it, but there was a lot of like, it doesn't fit story-wise when it came out, so I had it organized in like a different where it fit, and that was what threw me off. So there's that. So that is Corner Box Classics for this week. Let me know what you would have picked up this week. Let me know if I have convinced anyone to buy Hercules. I'd be really excited to hear that. And I will be back on Wednesday with a bike ride with Hank up to our comic book shop to pick up our new books. So yeah, so have a good weekend. Enjoy some comics, and I will see you on Wednesday. Thanks for taking this ride with us. Bye.